Whether you operate one forklift or thousands, one location or hundreds, the new My Toyota customer portal can help you optimize your operation and material handling equipment. This one-stop, free-to-use platform is designed to help you take control of your information and make smarter decisions, all at the touch of a button. Register and access your data today at my.toyotaforklift.com. That's my.toyotaforklift.com.
Hi, this is Martin Hitch of Coros, and you're listening to the New Warehouse podcast. And today's safety tip is see and be seen. And if you listen to the rest of this podcast, it'll become abundantly clear. We specialize in computer vision, and we believe that if you can see what is going on in a warehouse, on the shop floor, around the dock door, wherever it may be, and people there that can therefore be seen, then we're going to be able to improve the safety in the facility because we have an immediate understanding of what's going on.
Fulfillment demand continues to skyrocket and outpace available labor. To keep up, warehouse operators are turning to flexible fulfillment solutions like 6 River Systems. Utilizing 6 River Systems' award-winning combination of collaborative robots, artificial intelligence, and operational expertise will make your associates and wall-to-wall fulfillment workflow more efficient. No new infrastructure, no change to warehouse layout, easy to deploy and scale, easy to train and retain associates, all at half the cost of traditional automation. Want to take your fulfillment operation to the next level? Go to www.6river.com to learn more. That's www.6river.com to learn more.
The New Warehouse Podcast, hosted by Kevin Lawton, is your source for insights and ideas from the distribution, transportation, and logistics industry. A new episode every Monday morning brings you the latest from industry experts and thought leaders. And now, here's Kevin.
Hey, it's Kevin Lawton with the New Warehouse Podcast, bringing you a new episode today. And on today's episode, I'm going to be joined by Martin Hitch. He is the CEO at Coros, and Coros is bringing more visibility into the warehouse, specifically in the dock area, in a very interesting way. So we're going to talk to Martin about Coros, how the idea kind of came about for Coros, and how does it work, and what can it really benefit your company on and bring your operation to more efficiency and also quality as well. So Martin, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks. Great to be here. And I'm looking forward to the next hour.
Definitely happy to have you on the podcast and learn about Coros as well. So why don't you give us a little overview, I guess, of your background a little bit and how you kind of ended up at Coros here.
So my recent background, although it doesn't feel so recent at this moment in time, I'm a co-founder of a company called Boston Over Robotics.
Okay.
And my partner Sajid Skaff and I, we created the category really of inventory scanning robots in retail stores. Mm-hmm. So think large-scale robots, 6 foot tall, fully autonomous, like level 5 autonomy, like the ability to move completely independently in and around a dynamic environment. And dynamic being, think about the public, people, shopping carts, inventory, anything that could be moving around a retail store. Walmart as the biggest customer at my time there. So, the not only like a dynamic environment, but the very biggest dynamic environment you could imagine as a Walmart supercenter. And we spent a decade developing a solution and deploying a solution, and Sajid continues to run the company to this day. Mm. And the key thing about that is, initially, everybody gets excited about the robot. You have a fully autonomous robot running around while people are doing their shopping. But the reality of that was the magic from that robot was in the data. And how we captured data and how we processed data and how we made it available in real time was what developed, what created the business value. And when you analyze what that was, it's like it's when you peel back the layers of a robot, what we had there was high-res cameras that captured images out on the edge, processed on the edge, extracted data from the images that we were capturing, and then made sure that corrective actions to reorder inventory, restock shelves, reorganize shelves were delivered back to the supply chain in order for those shelves to be replenished. So that same stack, which is the cameras, the edge processing, and the remote connectivity is probably a key bit where we're operating through an LTE or a 5G network, is what is allowing us to capture, process, and develop insights and then return actionable information in real time. And so the two stacks are very similar. The difference between, I think, Bossa Nova and Coros, for example, is Bossa Nova was right at the front end. We're in the retail store where the consumer is shopping, and used a mobile robot because that was the optimal way to capture the data.
Right.
Coros, we use a fixed camera that is installed above key handoff points in the supply chain. So think of one facility handing off goods through a loading dock door into a trailer.
Right.
The handoff point is the dock door. So we install a fixed infrastructure at that point above the dock door, scanning, watching everything that moves through it. And the key point that makes Coros really valuable is because our software extracts extremely accurate data. So 99.9% accuracy of what we're seeing.
Wow.
And with that information, we audit against a WMS system. So we ingest the plan from the WMS and we run a real-time audit to see how the facility is performing against that WMS plan. So in real time, that means we are identifying misloads, things that are going onto a trailer that shouldn't, and also things that are missing from a trailer. So if a trailer manifest has 2,000 packages that should be on it and we see 1,950, before that trailer is closed and launched, we're making sure that we identify that package.
Right.
And I should say that we're firmly focused in small parcel movement as well. So think about direct to consumer deliveries as opposed to what the rest of the supply chain could look like. And the key thing about that, Kevin, is if I miss my load window at the shipper origin, I'll miss the delivery window. Right. Because I was listening to the podcast from last week, listening to the Zebra podcast, and there was a reference in there about the expectations of consumers to receive goods in an ever decreasing window. Right. We want that period of time gets shorter and shorter and shorter, which puts incredible pressure at every point of the supply chain. So whether that is the shipper going through the original pick and pack operation to the carrier, picking it up on a schedule, running through middle mile, going through a sort of hub and spoke operation that gets them out to last mile delivery vehicles. Yeah. If there's any mishap along the way, the delivery doesn't happen according to the committed window. And that's what we focus on with Coros is if we can audit and deliver corrective action at the source, the origin, the shipper facility, so we're raising the accuracy of the shipper, then it means that as it flows through the delivery window, everybody gets better.
Very interesting. And I'm curious, how did the idea for Coros come about? What sparked that idea to make that move for you?
The question of origin is interesting because we had a lot of learning from Bossa Nova about how the very front end of that supply chain worked, which is, right down to the shop floor, right? And saw how that impacted through the supply chain. Coros had a slightly different origin, which is we went even further down the supply chain and we started looking at last mile delivery vehicles. Okay. So the original concept for Coros was there is a lot of manual process in the load and unload of a last mile delivery vehicle. Right. There's an awful lot of manual scanning that happens on the in and out of a parcel. And where Coros started was we looked at that vehicle and said, can we optimize the load and unload process with a simple goal of reducing the amount of time it takes? And the concept here was if I can reduce the time it takes to load and unload, I can put more parcels on a vehicle and make a vehicle route more profitable. Simple math. I have so many hours in a day to deliver, and I either deliver 100 packages or I deliver 150. Yeah. And if I can save time to allow 150, that's the goal. So the technology started saying, when we analyzed that process, there's a lot of manual scanning. So we started using cameras to manually scan. And then the natural evolution was, if I optimize how that vehicle is loaded, then I speed up the process of moving a package in, having the vehicle scan it, and then locate it in a place that is appropriate for its route delivery.
Right.
So if I know I have 200 packages, I divide the vehicle into a number of slices, as it were, and I make sure that I load it. And for that, we took, pick-to-light, put-to-light technology that, of course, existed for a long time, and said if we apply that into the cargo bay of the vehicle, then I scan the vehicle, I analyze it, I identify its place in the route, I look at the size of the package, and I say this is the right place to load it in that vehicle according to the route. And in that instant, I illuminate LEDs on the shelf. So there's a corresponding LED fixture that says this is the right place to load it in the vehicle. Which means, of course, Kevin, when I arrive at your house, the GPS says I'm at Kevin's house. I open the back doors of the vehicle, and there is the light telling me this is the package I drop at Kevin's house.
That's awesome.
So I speed the load because I'm no longer figuring it out myself. I'm no longer manually scanning. I move it in, I put it down, I move it in, I put it down. But I also speed the unload. I open the vehicle, I pick it up, I drop it off. So we started there. And as we started analyzing that, and the work that we did with that was in conjunction with FedEx. Okay. And this is one, FedEx has a public facing video that sort of explains a little bit about this relationship. And we explored that. And it was that actually made us say, if we took this technology and went back into the supply chain, further back, and started looking at what was coming from the shipper origin, if I can do this in a vehicle and I can move it back into the shipper facility, not only can I analyze the performance and activity that happens in the shipper facility, but I now have the information that the carrier wants in that last mile vehicle. And if I share that information across those two traditionally siloed operations, then everybody gets visibility into what's happening. And it's not visibility into the plan. There's a lot of planning that goes on in logistics. There's a WMS that plans, there's the TMS that plans, there are carrier labels that are shipped, but never actually applied to a package and end up being voided at some point. So there's a lot of planning, and what we focus on is the actual. And so taking it from the vehicle, moving it back into the warehouse allowed us to then connect the two together and say, if I can see what's happening in the warehouse facility and I can give notice to the carrier, then everybody can improve their operations because they're sharing one single source of truth. And that, I think, is probably the best way of sort of categorizing Coros is, we're a visibility platform at the end of the day. We're an accuracy platform. And, we believe that the siloed organizations that have traditionally operated in the logistics space need to be connected, but connected with the source of truth instead of the plan. And the WMS, the P44s or the 4kites that sit above it, they're extracting information that is always the plan. And what we see our role as is, how do you then take that plan and update it with what's actually happened? It's like running your monthly accounts. I have a forecast and then I have an actual that I plan against it.
Very interesting, and I love the pick to light in the truck. Actually, it's a very clever idea. You're essentially making the truck into like a small fulfillment center, I guess, which makes total sense.
That's right.
So now the current state, because you said moving it back outside of the truck into the warehouse. So now is it's still having the same functionality in the truck as well with the pick to light situation and all that?
So without the pick to light when we move into the warehouse, so the warehouse the devices look the same for all intents and purposes. The way that our solution works and the problem that we look to solve is the problem is all about visibility, and as I say, it's this audit of plan versus actual versus plan. The way that we do that is we're all about real-time visibility.
Okay.
And if I can see it, then I can measure it and I can then act on it. And so in the vehicle, we go one step further with the pick to light, put to light, as you mentioned. But in the warehouse, it's really then about getting corrective action while mistakes are being made. And, no supply chain is perfect. I think, Amazon, from the connections that we have in the industry, Amazon's distribution center or fulfillment center SLAs are somewhere in the 99.4% SLA levels. That 0.6% differential is 600 packages.
Yeah.
It's like 600 packages out of every 10,000. It's it suddenly mounts up, and you think of how many packages may be moving out of a facility in a given day. It's like what we look to solve is, if I identify that there are packages being incorrectly loaded, they're going to the wrong carrier, they're going on the wrong trailer, with an audio-visual cue, I can actually course correct that when it happens.
Yeah.
So, and then the second one is, if there, as I mentioned earlier, if things are missing, then what I'm able to do there is say before you launch the trailer, can we do anything about these 20 boxes that are not on it? Because if they're not on it, we're going to miss it. And then it becomes, the downstream impact of that is, I now have a customer experience issue that I'm dealing with. I'm reshipping a package. I'm explaining to somebody why their parcel isn't coming when I told them it was going to come. Yeah. Any amount of downstream negativity that we, as the unreasonable consumer, I think at this point, because I want my stuff tomorrow, or I want it within no later than 48 hours. If you can get it to me today, that's my preference. So if you think about that shopping experience that is now being created and we've all been trained on in the last 18 months, especially, it's like, how do I make sure that I'm doing everything I can to keep the SLA commitment I made to my consumer?
Right.
And that's what we look to focus on. And so, and in the process of that, we remove a manual scan. Every single day, you will see an article about the shortage of labor, the inability to hire, how competitive that landscape is. And ours is a fraction of that piece, which is there are hours dedicated to the scanning of parcels as they move through different places of the warehouse.
Right.
What our device is enabling is you automate that scanning to a very, very high degree of accuracy. It operates on a 24/7 basis. It installs in less than 1 hour, which is unheard of for warehouse technology.
Yeah.
And it frees that scarce human resource to a more valuable task. So the human resource is reallocated, and the Coros device is just driving a level of accuracy and a live audit to make sure that we're improving our shipping. And you and I win in the end, Kevin, because if we address that up front, the upshot is we deliver more parcels on time.
Yeah, very nice. So now I'm interested in the exception portion. So, it's one thing you mentioned is you give the example, I think it's supposed to be 2,000 packages on the truck and end up being 1,950. So how do we find those 50 packages before we let that truck take off, right? So talk us through how that works. What happens when, it's scanning through and then it recognizes either something is wrong, or at the end everything is not where it's supposed to be. How does that process work, and how does Coros kind of help resolve those issues?
One of the things that we do with our customers is we receive the day's plan.
Okay.
So the first step is we understand what is meant to happen.
All right.
So as we then track the actual movement of packages out of a facility or into a vehicle, we're able to then run the audit.
Okay.
So when you have that simple A/B comparison, then we're able to drive actions from it. So a lot of that comes down to working with the customer, making sure that we're understanding what the customer wants to understand. But you can imagine if you put a UPS package on a FedEx truck, and it ends up going through a FedEx network, it doesn't come back very quickly. And vice versa. It will find its way back eventually. And the way that often those things are handled is another package is immediately reshipped.
Right.
It's like, if we've lost it, reship it. And if the customer gets two, they get two. It's like, we made an SLA commitment.
Right.
We need to try and keep the SLA commitment. By driving the corrective actions, you're giving an alternative now. So this isn't just, we've either lost it and therefore it's a customer service issue. I think there's a statistic from Convoy that says 83% of customers will change on maybe one or two failed deliveries or messed up delivery issues.
They're going somewhere else.
They'll stop buying at the site.
Yeah.
A lot of it then is where are they going to? Where's the one that you trust more than anything is you think you're going to get it immediately from Amazon.
Right.
It's like, where are you trading off to? So delivery becomes like, a significant piece of the competitive landscape in any brand selling direct to the consumer. And getting it right becomes really critical. And the money that gets spent on acquiring customers in the first place and retaining customers is pretty significant.
Yeah.
And it's easy to lose them if it just takes a delivery issue, particularly when it's 600 out of every 10,000. And that's if you're Amazon. If you're anybody else, that number's probably quite a bit higher, or is quite a bit higher from our data, but I can't share that data, unfortunately. So it's that gap that we focus on that. We're like, if we can fix it and do better at source, then we minimize all that downstream impact. We allow the partners to optimize, and we minimize the issue, the customer issues. We're minimizing, the dollars that are spent on scanning in the first place. That's replaced or reduced. You're allowing a dock door to operate in a 24/7 window because the devices are always on, always scanning.
Yeah.
So there's an incredible amount of information, and what you start with that information is you start to digitize the process then. So, if you follow that through about what you can do with that data, if you think about a bill of lading created by a WMS system today,
right,
that bill of lading is created according to plan, and so things don't happen according to plan. There's a discrepancy somewhere.
You're right.
And so what we then have is we start that digitization process. So when you capture all that data with extreme accuracy in that scenario as we load trailers, then I now have the ability to recalibrate that bill of lading. Essentially, you digitize the bill of lading, you calibrate it with the actual, and then everybody touches that going downstream in the supply chain is getting real data. This is back to that single source of truth and making sure we share the single source of truth.
We'll be back after a quick break.
You hear a lot about supply chains these days because if the past couple years have taught us anything, it's that an efficient, well-managed supply chain is absolutely critical to keeping businesses successful and consumers happy. I'm Will Haywood, and I host a podcast called All Business, No Boundaries, where we talk about supply chains, how they work, what happens when they don't, and the innovations that are redefining what's possible in the world of logistics. Join me for insightful interviews with thought leaders and industry experts. We discuss how optimizing supply chains can break down the barriers that are holding businesses back. That's All Business, No Boundaries by DHL Supply Chain. Listen and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
Yeah, very interesting. And I love the part where you mentioned that it's really addressing the labor shortage and essentially putting in something that's 24/7 that can help to increase that, and then move that person who's scanning or those people that are scanning into a different role and really add more value from their perspective. And I'm sure get them to do something maybe a little more entertaining than just scanning boxes all day. But
I will tell you, and this is actually echoing what Jim Lawton at Zebra said last week, is, and having spent a decade in the robotics space prior to this, is that there is a sort of symbiotic relationship between automation and the human that works alongside it, and we are really good, dexterous things.
Yeah,
and if you think about what scanning is, it's a repetitive, beep of a scanning device.
Oh, yeah.
That we know we can automate that really, really well. And we've been automating it very well for a long time. It just necessarily isn't that accessible. It's a giant scan tunnel. It's a huge piece of equipment. And what we looked at with Coros is, how do we make this a consumer product style experience? And you take this down. This is why it takes an hour to install. It's literally 4 bolts in the wall and a power cord.
Yeah.
in that window, it's giving you data immediately. It's like, this is the easiest thing to install and deploy, which is how we buy consumer electronics at home. We take it home and don't expect someone to come and give me a consultation for 6 months before it works. It's like I plug it in and it goes. And that's really how we design the product at Coros. Is we want to be able to take this into a warehouse, plug it in, walk away, and our customer is already seeing value from it. And I think what that then does is it immediately says, if I can focus on that, but I want the person, where I get value out of that person loading the trailer is if I can communicate to that person that the wrong item's going on the trailer, that person can change it immediately. If you try to automate that, that would take, decades to get something to do it as quick as a person. It's like, so to echo exactly what Jim and Zebra said is like, there is a relationship between automation and people. And the two need to live hand in hand. It's like, that's how we'll really optimize the supply chain. I think, at many levels, but it's by being able to capture information and act on information, we make the whole thing smarter.
Yeah, very interesting. And, I do think, you have a point, and so did Jim have a point as well. You guys are kind of making the same point here, I think, maybe. Robots and humans need to work together, I think, in unison to be able to really have the most effectiveness and the most impact on our operations and in our world, in terms of making sure that things are being as efficient as possible, and automating those tasks that necessarily don't really need to be done by a human. But like you said, being able to jump in and grab the wrong box immediately, which Coros can allow you to know when the immediate issue is, instead of later on down the road when that truck is full and now all of a sudden you got the wrong box, you're trying to find it in there. It's a mess. That's a perfect example of automation and the human working hand in hand to really be successful there. So I'm interested in the installation process. I mean, you said it takes an hour, and I love your point there, as you're saying, like a consumer good we buy for our house, like, could you imagine like buying a TV and you need a 6-month consultation in order to actually watch the next football game or something, right? So it's a very interesting point, and I love that aspect that we are getting to that point in the warehousing distribution world where the technology is following suit of the technology that we're utilizing in our personal lives as consumers. We look more at things like the Android-based stuff that looks more like the phones we're using every day, and now you're talking about the installation aspect as well. I think as people have more technology surrounding them in their everyday lives, they're creating these higher expectations for the technology they're using at an enterprise and in their business as well when they go to work, and they want to have those types of things. And it's much like we're talking about the demand to receive product as consumers. It keeps increasing, and we keep having higher expectations to get it faster. And I think they're seeing the same thing in our space too. Is why is it going to take me 6 months, a year to implement this? Why can't you guys just do it now? I want it done now. That's who we become. But I think it makes sense, and where we're at technology wise, I mean, I'm really happy to hear that you guys are embracing that philosophy, and hopefully that rolls over into many other solution providers that may be listening right now to this podcast. Take note there. Please get things done faster.
I think the key thing here is that technology is allowing us to do it. There is, when I think about what we think of IoT, IoT should be an independent device that lives at the edge of the network. And the way that technology has come together today is that it enables us to sort of truly do that today. And when I look at Coros particularly, we have an exceptional device that's insanely accurate right out on the edge. But it's enabled by, the right compute, camera technology, compute technology, and then connectivity. And if you can combine that into one single box, that's essentially what allows us to operate right at the edge of the network. And so it's a combination of technologies. And I think if we'd tried to do this 10 years ago, we wouldn't have succeeded. Or we wouldn't have succeeded at a price that made sense. And I think what we've got now is, you get to a point where, I think you've got a technology that you can put in and it'll run for years. I think is the first thing. It's like there is very little that goes wrong that can go wrong with today's technologies. Moving parts have gone. So when you've got a lot of like componentry that has no moving parts in it, then there's very little things that can go wrong. So you can put a device in there that lasts for years and years, which then allows you to start getting the value proposition right for customers. And that's really a lot of what we focused on is, we looked at, our original concept. So to take the 1 hour install one step further, Kevin, we focused on self-install. We designed it and said, I could ship boxes to a warehouse, and any warehouse technical team that might be the electrician or, can bolt this to a wall and plug it in. It's like you can self-install it, and hopefully, at higher volumes, that's where we get to. But I think it's sort of, when we look at that, it really is sort of thinking through, how do I make this? I have to solve a business problem, and I have to make sure that I'm delivering value. And the evolution of technology in the last 5+ years has allowed us to get to that point where we can do it, and we can deliver it at a price that allows customers to deploy over every dock door, to put in every vehicle, and to truly scale and deliver value in fairly short order.
Yeah, very interesting. And I love that you guys are pursuing that. And not only, I think some companies, like they get caught up in just focusing on the technology itself and what the technology can do. But I love that you guys are focusing on the customer experience too, which is, goes hand in hand for your customers, because your customers are warehouse shippers, right? And, they're constantly listening to, or they should be listening to the voice of the consumer as well, to make sure they're getting the best customer experience, as,
right.
They're that last line of defense before customers receive their products. So I love that aspect, definitely. So, we talked about, Coros, what it is you guys do and how the idea came about, and, what the kind of current state is and what's going on. But I'm curious, with this technology, you already mentioned how, started in the truck and then moved to the dock door. Now, how do you think the technology can continue to grow and help companies kind of steadily still keep up with this increase in demand, which is only going to get more, I'm sure?
Yeah, well, I think Pitney Bowes, in their annual parcel index, the most recent one out was for 2020, where we, in the US, in North America, actually in the US, not North America, in the US, we shipped 20 billion parcels.
Wow.
In 2020, and it is forecast to double within 5 years. So if you think by 2025, we're shipping 40 billion parcels in the US. And I think if you unpack that, it means that, I remember running the math here, look at a family of 4 will receive 10 parcels a week.
Wow.
So think about, that alone is like a mind-blowing statistic, because think about the infrastructure that has to change in order to support 10 parcels coming to every family of 4.
Yeah.
It's 2.5 parcels if you're a household of 1. It's an incredible volume. And I think, what as we sort of think about the impact that has, with that volume, you have there's a demand on the shipper facilities, on the middle mile, on the last mile. Everything essentially becomes stretched. And I think what we will see is a move to automate more and more of these different processes, because there will always be the labor will always be applied to the hardest task, which typically comes to, how do I pick things up and move them?
Yeah.
Without thinking about it. It's like I just picked up a cup of tea and a mouse, and think about how different those two things are to grab, and how complex that would be for a robot to try and do it, for example. So I think we're going to see this. We're going to see more and more automation in these tasks that become pretty repetitive, and that's certainly, when we think about what Coros does, we're about providing visibility by scanning. And I think what we allow is 24/7 operation, massive scale, and like insane accuracy.
Yeah.
And I think we as demand increases, we will see more and more within a warehouse. You'll see more and more dock doors that are being dedicated to those small parcels. If you think of if a warehouse today has one door for UPS, one door for FedEx, and maybe one door for the Postal Service, then it stands to reason if the volume doubles, you could double those number of dock doors.
Yeah.
So, and that's just allocated for that. How that trades off with the bulk freight that's coming in and out of the facility, we'll have to see how that goes. But I think when we look at Coros, it is very much about how do we enable more of those dock doors, greater visibility, see more and more. So different types of packages. That's how we evolve. You see a box, you see a padded bag, you see a nylon or a vinyl package. Maybe the label's printed directly on the package instead of a label. There's a lot of different nuances in the actual shipping vessel, if you think about it. And I think when we look at Coros, when we look at that direct-to-consumer business, our job is to be best in class in seeing it and extracting the right data and then sharing it. And back to my safety tip, the see and be seen is, we think of that as a business as well. And we refer to it as the visible supply chain. No longer is the supply chain this plan. It should be the actual, what do you actually see? What is visible and what is actually moving? And that for us, certainly as a technology company, is the way that we think about our business is what else can I do with cameras and with then the machine learning and AI algorithms that I run on the data that I'm capturing to extract pertinent information that allows people to take action in real time. That's the Coros business.
Got it. Yeah. Very interesting stuff. And, really interested to see how Coros continues to grow. And I mean, increasing that visibility, as you stated, I mean, is a huge thing. And I think, the overall thing of being able to collect that data and understand that data and being able to reduce the amount of exceptions that are happening by utilizing that data for root cause analysis and then preventative measures, of course, I mean, I think is huge, and it's generating different visibility, and I think faster visibility as well. As you mentioned, people are able to resolve issues immediately because Coros is calling it out to them instead of waiting until the truck is full and then realizing there's an issue, and who knows where the issue is. Maybe there's one package in there at the bottom of 50 other packages you got to get to. So, what's a lot of people will probably just say, send it. So
I think if I summarize it, it's that you optimize the accuracy of load and the speed of load.
Absolutely.
So if I can load it faster and I can put more in that vehicle, for example, then I'm winning, because I am optimizing the asset, the vehicle, the trailer. It's like, so if I can optimize the speed that it goes in, I'm removing all the time that it takes to manually scan. I'm making sure that what's going on is accurate. Then that trailer is loaded faster. I put more stuff on it and it gets off the dock door faster. The next trailer comes in. Translate the exact same thing to a delivery vehicle, which is I'm loading it faster. I've got more time to run my routes, the hours that offices are open, for example. So I have more time to do my route, which means I can put more packages on. I'm optimizing the asset. So the assets that are in that vehicle get optimized through visibility and actionable information. It's like, and if you can't see it, you can't measure it.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. So Martin, really great stuff coming from Coros, and thank you so much for the wonderful insights along the way too as well. If people want to learn more about Coros, how can they do that?
The easiest way, Coros.net. So COROS.net. Coros.net is a website. You'll be able to reach out and contact us there. You'll obviously find us you can find us at Coros_AI on Twitter. You'll find us Coros on LinkedIn, but Coros.net is always the easiest way.
Okay, great. And we'll put all that information on the newwarehouse.com as well, so the listeners can find it. So Martin, thank you once again for your time on the show today.
You've been listening to the New Warehouse Podcast with Kevin Lawton. Subscribe and check us out online at thenewwarehouse.com.
Thank you for listening to this episode. If you want more content from the new warehouse, check out our new video series called All Hands on LinkedIn. Just search for the new warehouse on LinkedIn and follow along.